Prakash, you ready? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Na Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Shnapad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Astotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Prajikacharya Astotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 12th day of May 2021 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 11, entitled The Universal Form, text number 38, page 485. You have it? Okay. Page 485 at the top. Okay. Tvam Adideva Purushak Puranas. Tvam Adideva Purushak Puranas. Tvam Asya Vishvasya Param Nidhanam. Tvam Asya Vishvasya Param Nidhanam. Vetasi Vedyam Chaparam Chadhama. Vetasi Vedyam Chaparam Chadhama. Tvaya Tatham Vishvam Anantarupa. Tvaya Tatham Vishvam Anantarupa. Tvamadidevak Purushak Puranas. Tvamasya Vishvasya Parang Nidhanam. Vetasi Vedyam Chaparang Chadhama. Tvaya Tatham Vishvam Anantarupa. Tvamadidevak Purushak Puranas. Tvamasya Vishvasya Parang Nidhanam. Vetasi Vedyam Chaparang Chadhama. Tvaya Tatham Vishvam Anantarupa. Glenn. Tvamadidevak Purushak Puranas. Tvamasya Vishvasya Parang Nidhanam. Vetasi Vedyam Chaparang Chadhama. Tvaya Tatham Vishvam Anantarupa. Tvamadidevak Purushak Puranas. Tvamasya Vishvasya Parang Nidhanam. Vetasi Vedyam Chaparang Chadhama. Tvaya Tatham Vishvam Anantarupa. Dimitri, you want to try? Tvamadidevak Purushak Puranas. Tvamasya Vishvasya Parang Nidhanam. Vetasi Vedyam Chaparang Chadhama. Tvaya Tatham Vishvam Anantarupa. Ladies? Okay. I'll read the word by words. Tvam, you, Adi Devaha, the original supreme God. Purushaha, personality. Puranaha, old. Tvam, you, Asya, of this, Vishvasya, universe. Param, transcendental. Nidhanam, refuge. Veta, the knower. Asi, you are. Vejam, the knowable. Cha and Param, transcendental. Cha and Dhamma, refuge. Tvaya, by you, Tatam, pervaded. Vishwam, the universe. Anantarupa, oh, unlimited form. Arjuna said to Krishna, the universal form, you are the original personality of Godhead, the oldest, the ultimate sanctuary of this manifested cosmic world. You are the knower of everything, and you are all that is knowable. You are the supreme refuge above the material modes. O limitless form, this whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you. Purport. Everything is resting on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, He is the ultimate rest. Nidhanam means that everything, even the Brahman effulgence, rests on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He is the knower of everything that is happening in this world, and if knowledge has any end, He is the end of all knowledge. Therefore, He is the known and the knowable. He is the object of knowledge because He is all-pervading. Because He is the cause in the spiritual world, He is transcendental. He is also the chief personality in the transcendental world. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this verse is quite packed with glorification of Krishna. And the Bhagavad Gita has many verses like this. The Srimad Bhagavatam has many, many more. And these verses, they help us to understand who Krishna is and who we are. It develops a understanding of the relationship. There are these three stages in devotional service: the Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. It's important to understand them. Sambandha is the foundational knowledge. This, like when Krishna begins his instructions in the second chapter, Ashochana, Bashochastran, Pragyavana, Chabasa, say, you're lamenting for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Right? You're speaking learned words, but actually you're a fool. He's chastising you. And then basically he has a whole 20 verses, a sub-chapter, in which he's describing the nature of the soul as separate from the body. Kind of the summary verse in all of them. The Jayate, Mriyate, Vakadachan, Nayambut, Vaba, Vitava, Nabuya, Ajo, Nitya, Shastrato, Yam Purano, Nahanyate, Hanyamane Sharire. Prabhupada quoted this verse many, many times. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. At any time. We were never born and we'll never die. Which is encouraging. The Jayate, Mriyate, Nayambut, souls have not come into being at any time. They've always existed. They're not coming into being now as we speak, and in the future there won't be any new ones. They were just as eternal as Krishna is. And then he has this line, Ajo, Nitya, Shashrata, Yam Purano. Aja means unborn. He's basically repeating in different ways. Nitya, eternal. So unborn means we're eternal backwards, right? And Nitya means eternal forward. In other words, we're both ways. Shashrata, permanent. Purana, ancient. And then, very pertinent to the battlefield, the soul is not slain when the body is slain. So that's who we are. I mean, that's just, a little summary of the qualities of the soul. And without understanding that basic information, you can't really begin. That's step one of self-realization. Otherwise, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? I didn't mean it that way. You got to think you're something in relation to the body. I have a certain name. I was born at a certain time. I have a color. I have parents. All these relations, language, right? That's all pertinent to the body, which is a very temporary covering on the soul. I'd like to give the example. Where this life that we're leading in this body is a very short chapter in a very long book. In other words, we have no idea all that we've been through to come to this point. And if we just lead our life on the basis of the bodily or mental concept of life, we'll have no idea what our future holds. We're just wallowing in ignorance and not knowing that we're ignorant. This is the most dangerous kind. So there's much in the Bhagavad Gita, especially in that second chapter, identifying what the soul is, in negative and positively. The soul can never be cut, can never be burned, is immovable. These are all negative qualities. You can't be moved, so many things. And then it develops in what do we do now to achieve the self-realization? So there's different methods that Krishna gives: karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and bhakti yoga, which really underlies all of it. Bhakti yoga. So once we understand we're souls, and we understand from other parts of the Bhagavad Gita that we're part and parcel of Krishna, we're naturally his servants, then the question is, well, how do we get there? How do we clear out all of the misconceptions we've been cultivating for lifetimes, and we live in the truth, and for our benefit and for the benefit of all we come in contact with? How do we get to that point? How do we develop that consciousness? And that's called Abhideya. Abhideya means the practice by which you realize the knowledge and you realize yourself. And we're familiar with parts of it: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving. There's 9 processes, blood. Worship of the deities, praying, hearing and chanting. This is not a prayer. He's not praying here, but there are prayers here also. This is just a glorification. I will share with you, this is one of the first verses I ever memorized. Somehow or other, this verse just really caught my attention. I'm not sure why. But I remember walking back to the temple from the subway in Brooklyn back in 73, probably early 74, and repeating this verse, you know. The whole thing is just repetition. Once you learn how to chant the sounds and everything, repetition. But it's great. Then you go before the deity, and right there's Govinda, Radha Govinda in Brooklyn. Tvamadi Deva Purushak Puranas Tvamasi. That's what they're meant for. To open up and deepen our understanding and our relationship with Krishna. And we're meant for that. You know, that's what these verses are for. To define who Krishna is. And now next verse is all kinds of obeisances. You know, from before, from behind, from everywhere. You know. And so that this is part of, and Gita just has a little, you know, taste. There's beautiful verses there. But Bhagavatam is just full of them. The very third verse of the Bhagavatam. Yeah, the beats, you know. I mean, the first two verses are really heavy, you know. It's like, he's defining the subject of the book. You know, the same. It's the conclusion to the Vedanta Sutra. It begins with the same words. Janmad yasya yataha is the second sutra. The sutra says, now you should inquire into Brahman. You know, and what is that Brahman? That from which everything comes, which sustains everything, and which, you know, absorbs everything at the end. You know, doesn't mention there. It's a person. You know, but the same thing is answered. That's why it is said, Artanam Brahmasutranam. Within the Bhagavatam, it's described that the meanings, artha means many things, and one thing it means is meaning. And so the meaning is of the Vedanta is given in the Bhagavatam. And that's why Lord Chaitanya, he based his whole movement on the Bhagavatam. There's a very nice verse that summarizes Lord Chaitanya's teachings. There's several of them, and this is one Prabhupada would always quote. Aradyo Bhagavan Vajeshatanayas Tandama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachadupasana Vrajabadu Vargena Yakalpita Shriman Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumato Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahapato Matamadam Tadraranaknaparaha. This is what Lord Chaitanya taught, and I don't know anything beyond it. That's the last line of the verse. So it begins with this, Arajo Bhagavan. One should worship Bhagavan. Well, okay. I mean, that's kind of, all the different sampradayas do it. That's not as special with Lord Chaitanya. One should worship Bhagavan. But then he divides which Bhagavan, which manifestation. Brajeshatanayas. Vraja Isha Tanaya, the son of the king of Braja. Nanda Sunu. Nanda, in other words, Krishna. And one should also worship his Dham, Vrindavan. In other words, one should cultivate attraction for Vrindavan, visit Vrindavan if one can, you know. So, Arajo Bhagavan, Vajeshatanayas Tadham Vrindavanam. How should one worship? Ramya Kachirupasana Vrajabadu Vargena Yakalpita. The highest mode of worship is, and this is what Lord Chaitanya taught, the mode of the gopis. Vrajavadu, the ladies of Vrindavan. Ramya Kachid Upasana, the beautiful ladies, that's the mood. Well, what's the evidence for all this? You're claiming all this. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the pristine a source of knowledge, evidence. This word pramana. This comes up at the end of the 16th chapter. There's 4 verses I'll share with you if you remind with me. They nicely summarize the lesson of the Gita. So pramana, what evidence do we use? What source of knowledge do we use that we can believe? We can't believe our senses and our mind. We know from experience how faulty they are, right? They got us into this mess. So that's a key element. We need an aparusheya source of knowledge, superhuman. That's the revealed scripture, beginning with Krishna speaking. He spoke the first word. This is right in the Isha Upanishad in the introduction. Maybe it's not in the introduction, it's one of the verses, the purport. Krishna spoke the first word to Brahma. He enlightened him in his heart, and it's come down and expanded from that. So, and the fruit of the whole thing comprising is Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam, that is the final evidence for all of that I'm just saying now. And then then the questioner will ask, Okay, well, what's the goal of this whole thing? Prema pumarto mahan. The artha here means the final goal. And artha means different things. The final goal of human life, pum is short for pungsa, which means human being. Prema pum arto mahan. Prema, love of God, love of Krishna, in the mood of the gopis, is the ultimate goal. This is what Lord Chaitanya taught. I don't know anything beyond that. I don't accept it. So, the Bhagavad Gita fits in there. Otherwise, Prabhupada wouldn't have given us so much. And we have Baladev Vijayabhushan, great acharya in our line, the student of Vishwanath Chakrabarti. What does Vijayabhushan mean? You know, Alex. Vidya Bhushan. Bhushan is an ornament. He who has the ornament of knowledge. It's conferred upon someone who is very learned. So that's the source of all these purports. Prabhupada relied on those. He dedicates the book to Baladev Vijayabhushan. At the very beginning, you'll see it, the first page. So it's very much in our line. So a verse like this, we can all, if it moves you, take the book. You don't have to memorize it. Go before the Lord and chant, Tvam Adi Deva. You are the supreme person, the ancient person, Vishwasya Padam. All these different elements are important to know about Krishna. And they give us a perspective of who we are. We're very insignificant, very fragile, infinitesimal living beings. We need shelter. We have the illusion that you're independent. I can make my way in the world. No, you can't. You can be blown off over them at any moment. We're completely fragile, Look at this, the pandemic, nobody is immune, And you're not immune, at least from the fear, from the anxiety of it all. So that's the reality. So we need shelter, and Krishna here will be described in previous verses and subsequent verses, the supreme refuge, and you're all that is to be known. It's very rich, and we can make these verses our own. Prabhupada took so much trouble, and if you want to know, I can help you how to chant it. These are pretty easy. All right, let's go on. He continues glorifying Krishna. Vayu Yamogni Bononak Shashanka Pajapatis Tvam Papitama Hascha Namo Namaste to Sahasra Kritva Punashtabhuyopi Namo Namaste. So you notice there's a lot of obeisances there. You are air, and you are the supreme controller. You are fire, you are water, and you are the moon. You are Brahma, the first living creature, and you are the great grandfather. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you 1,000 times, and again and yet again. Purport. The Lord is addressed here as air, because the air is the most important representation of all the demigods, being all-pervasive. Arjuna also addresses Krishna as the great grandfather, because he is the father even of Brahma, the first living creature in the universe. Now one note on this word Namaha. You may have heard this before, but it's worth reiterating. Namaha is like, it's probably in the dictionary, English dictionary. Namaste, at least Namaste is there. You can look it up, right? So, as many of us know, if you ever ride on Indian Airlines, I don't recommend it. But what we used to call stewardesses, namaste, namaste, namaste. With the advent of the pandemic, and you're not supposed to shake hands anymore, this is one of the suggestions where you can maybe adopt it, namaste. So, there's a book by Sanatana Goswami called Krishna Lila Stava. A beautiful book which summarizes Krishna's Vrindavan Lila in a few hundred verses, actually, small ones. And intertwined in each Leela is a bunch of obeisances. Okay, he's offering obeisances and recalling Krishna's Leela. Very nectarine book. My old friend Gopi Puranananda translated this book, and it was published by the BBT. It wasn't a big seller, but it's out there. And at the beginning, he quotes from the Padma Purana, I believe it is, in an explanation of what the inner meaning of the word Namaha is. And it's one of these things that's kind of intuitive, So first of all, there's different levels, like this, kind of polite hello. And then there's the obeisance we offer where we're kind of bent like that, you know, and that's getting there. But the real one is like full-on dandavats, you know, which are not recommended for ladies, as you probably know, for various reasons I won't get into. But the spirit can be there. And the whole idea is that namaha, you're offering to the Lord or the Guru, you know, or some exalted personality, here straight to Krishna, again and again, nama, nama, nama. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, we say. Not mine. This body is not mine. I'm offering it to you. You know, the Guru, the Lord Chaitanya, whoever we offer it to. In other words, it's a conscious reversal of the ego, of the false ego, which is generally self-centered. You know, what's in it for me? You know, this is a mode of passion. But this is like, I'm recognizing that my constitutional position is one of service. And how am I going to serve? With what I've got. The senses, the mind, the intelligence, you know. So that's what I'm offering now. You see, I recognize your greatness, you know, and I take shelter. In other words, you have to have faith that the person who you're offering to has your best interest at heart. This is a big thing. Because in the material sphere, there's all kinds of people trying to lord it over other people, whether it's a boss in some job, or whether it's a political figure within a marriage, you know. Or, I mean, there's people who are bossing, and you're hoping that the person has your best interest at heart. Certainly in a family, you know, the parents have to take charge of the children, and you know, they have the best interest at heart. Children often agree with that, always agree with that, but it's true. Okay. So what Arjuna is expressing here, and he goes on in the next verse, offering obeisances, that he's fully surrendered unto Krishna and will ultimately culminate in his fighting the war, right? But here he says, namak parastat, I offer obeisance to you. And oftentimes, like in this verse, it'll explain why. Because he's glorifying Krishna. I offer my obeisances and take shelter of you because you're all powerful. And as Krishna says in the 5th chapter at the end, Sudadam Sarva Bhutanam. See, one of the things is because Krishna has so much, right? He has everything. Then that's an impetus for why we can think, well, he doesn't need anything from me. You know, why is he even paying attention? Because there's the caring there, the compassion, the love. He cares. That's why he's accompanying us throughout, you know, our sojourn in the material world. That's why he's come here to speak the Bhagavad Gita. He wants to reestablish Dharma, right? Padatanaya sadhunam. He wants to protect the devotees. So, in other words, there's that unbreakable bond of love and caring that Krishna has. And when we offer obeisances and offer ourselves, it means that we're surrendering to that understanding, and we have confidence that whatever Krishna is guiding us to do is for our ultimate benefit. Even though in our material consciousness it seems like austerity, tapasya. And that's why it's so much emphasized in the Bhagavatam and also in the Bhagavad Gita. The necessity for controlling the senses, redirecting the senses, tapasya, what we call tapasya. At first it may, you know, it's a little difficult, but we see, oh, this is necessary for purification, you know. And tapasya is not meant forever. It's not meant that this is my life now, for eternity, tapasya. No, you go through tapasya for purification, and then what was difficult becomes spontaneous. What was an austerity becomes something you want to do, you see. So you're being transformed, you're being purified, your heart is being purified. So, but being willing to undertake that austerity, undergo certain do's and don'ts, is a sign of faith. That the person who's giving you that instruction has your best interest at heart. Right? This is what, you know, oftentimes education, the famous first day at school. You know, the kid just wants to keep playing. Prabhupada told that about himself. I didn't want to go to school. They wanted to drag me. He wanted to play with those 2 pistols that they gave him. But the parents know that this is the best thing for the child. And you know, after a few years, the child is thankful the parents care enough to, you know, take the trouble to make you go to school. You realize it is the best thing. So this is, you know, what we're doing here in studying the Bhagavad Gita. We're witnessing Arjuna's expression of glorification, appreciation for Krishna. And we should also, try to get into the real inner mood that he has and carry that with us. And if we can, to, appropriate some of these, chant them before the deities. You can read the Bhagavad Gita right in front of Krishna, in the deities. That's what he's for. It's a wonderful way of glorifying Krishna in purification. All right, let's go on. More obeisances. Namak purastadata prishtataste namostate sarvata eva sarva ananta viryamita vikramastvam sarvam sumapnoshi tatosi sarvaha. Obeisances to you from the front, from behind, and from all sides. O unbounded power, you are the master of limitless might. You are all-pervading, and thus you are everything. Purport. Out of loving ecstasy for Krishna, his friend, Arjuna is offering his respects from all sides. He is accepting that Krishna, is the master of all potencies and all prowess, and far superior to all the great warriors assembled on the battlefield. It is said in the Vishnu Puran 1969, Yoyam tavagato deva samipam devataganaha sattameva jagat srashta yatak sarvagato bhavan. Whoever comes before you, even if he be a demigod, is created by you, O Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I have to share one thing. I think I mentioned to you how I used to be a member or be visiting regularly the Ramakrishna mission back in 1972. And there was a very charismatic speaker on the Bhagavad Gita, and I was attracted. He was taking over for Nikhilananda, who had had a stroke. He was still there, but he was disabled. So he was speaking, and he would always start these discourse on the Bhagavad Gita with this verse. Yeah, and he chanted it very nicely. And I realized later why, because it's kind of a little bit of a, you can easily interpret it Mayavad. You are all-pervading, you are everything, the all-pervading Brahman, So that's a little sidelight here. But Arjuna is, of course, not feeling like that. He is Krishna's friend, but none of these verses here are actually in that mood. And the next verse, he will ask for apology. He's apologizing for being too intimate with Krishna. Right? It says, I've addressed you as my friend, but you're so great, now please forgive me, like that. So that'll be cleared up in the purports. So he's very much in the mood of awe and reverence now. You remember he was frightened, and then, kalos mi loka kshayaga pravido. I mean, you can imagine that, time personified, which really destroys everything. If it came before you, how frightening that would be. So all-powerful time. So he's glorifying the Lord in wonderful ways, and offering his obeisances. And let's go on. So now we get. Yes, I was going to ask. You have any questions there, Dhanavai?
Yeah, thank you. Quickly, I want to ask you. When you said when Arjuna asked for forgiveness to Krishna, Lord Krishna, so we cannot worship Krishna as a friend. If somebody worship as a friend, that's not good.
No. No, that's really good. The point is that we evolve in our devotional service, and it really begins with awe and reverence. In order for us to engage in devotional service, we have to have faith that Krishna is God, all powerful, and our master, and that we're servants. Devotional service really begins with dasya, and that through the medium of the spiritual master, we can do that. That's essential. But as we progress, you become purified, and you hear not only these glories and these kind of all-powerful aspects of Krishna, which we should know, but also, as Prabhupada gave us, Krishna book early on. The evolution of the movement you can see also with the publication of the books. And Prabhupada, came with those 3 volumes of the Bhagavatam, and he packed so much in there. He once said, "I didn't know if I would be able to publish so many books, so I put everything in there that you need. But there's not that much about Krishna's Leela, very little in Vrindavan. So once the movement started going, he wanted very much which books came out. So Bhagavad Gita was so important. He wanted that to come out. And it's truly miraculous how it got printed. Because you have to, go way back to the early days of the movement. Prabhupada was writing his Bhagavatam, actually typing it out. 2 fingers he would type. And he typed up 4.5 or 5 chapters himself. And meanwhile, all they had was those first canto books. And I think maybe some small books came out. The Easy Journey book was available, if you could, find it. And the TLC came out, the Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya from the CC, very advanced, but essential. So then, how to get the book published? There was hardly any money. We didn't have that much money. And we were very small, So Brahmananda was trying to find this publisher, that publisher, and he made it known. He sent out a letter, I think, to Macmillan, which is a big international publisher. And we had the manuscript. So he gets a note back from Macmillan, somebody in Macmillan. And he's interested in having him come up there, So it didn't say, bring the Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada said, you'd take the Bhagavad Gita with you, the manuscript. And you tell them. He said, but Prabhupada, I don't know. Just do it. You'll see. So he went up there. And it turned out that the fellow who wrote about the Bhagavad Gita was just some clerk. He wasn't a guy high up in the publishing, So, and I said, oh boy, what's this going to be? So he's talking to the guy. And then one of the big guys in the office, came out of the back office, And he was talking about a Bhagavad Gita, and Brahmana said, oh, we have a Bhagavad Gita. Oh, you have a Bhagavad Gita? We need a Bhagavad Gita to complete our, there are all kinds of books coming out. Tibetan Book of the Dead, and the Autobiography of Yogi, and all kinds of different things, It was the 60s. So we've had Bhagavad Gita. Okay. It was like miraculous. There was it was definitely Krishna's hand there. But they didn't want the big Bhagavad Gita we have here. They weren't ready to. It's a 1,000-page book. We've kind of made it a little shorter, but not by much. And so they had to cut it down. Probably wasn't happy with that. They had to cut out a lot of purports, But they that was the first, one of the first books, 1968, I think it was the abridged Gita. It had a blue cover. And because they had association with Allen Ginsberg, who was famous, he was a real supporter. He had gone into India. He was chanting Hare Krishna. And they had an article in the Times and this and that, So there's some famous people. Wrote some introductions. Thomas Merton, Denise Levertov, Allen Ginsberg. I mean, these are all names, and it was right in our book, the little storefront temple, So that was the first book, the Gita that came out, one of the first books. And then, we could read from Prabhupada's Gita, and he would give class from that, But Prabhupada wasn't happy. Everything was so abridged. And eventually we were able, because we sold so many, they were ready to go for the big one, And it came out finally in 1972. There was a lot of editing to be done and a lot of inexperience, How to speed it up, probably all these purports. So they found in a storefront, like Gargamuni, one of the first devotees, he saw a dictating machine. Prabhupada always called it a dictaphone, which is a brand name for a certain dictating machine. I don't think we had a dictaphone. But anyway, he had that, and he bought it. He said, oh, this will speed things up. Instead of typing, Prabhupada can dictate, So that made it faster, but it created some problems. Because then you had to get them transcribed. And hardly anyone could type, in the storefront. So what happens? In walks this guy. He wasn't really a devotee. He wasn't really that interested in becoming a devotee. But it was the summertime, and he was a student at one of the universities in New York. And these new religions were happening everywhere, and so he proposed that he work with one of them, and that'd be part of his credit. He would, you know how they do sometimes. So he picked us, walks through the door, Neil. We can't bring him Bhakta Neil. We call him Neil the typist because he wasn't a real Bhakta. And he wanted to know if he could help, and he explained what he was all about. I said, "Do you know how to type?" "Yeah, I'm a pretty good typist." And so he picked up the transcribing. It turned out miraculously, Prabhupada knew exactly how to operate the machine. How? We don't know. Krishna told him he's operating the machine and dictating. But at the same time, sometimes he would cut off a word here and there. Plus all the Sanskrit, Bhakta Neil, he listened to English, and then all these Sanskrit verses come, he just leaves it blank, or dot, 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 This is the transcript that they had to edit from. It was a big trip. So in 1972, it was finally printed, the unabridged, and there's a picture of Prabhupada holding it to his head. It's like a big thing, And then all the devotees are studying from that, and they had classes, and you learned to chant the mantras and things like that. And gradually, as the Bhagavatam started coming out, all these revelations came. I won't go through all of that. But then at a certain point, 1970, Prabhupada realized devotees are chanting Hare Krishna, the movement's growing, and they got these teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the Gita. But they don't really know who Krishna is. So he stopped the Bhagavatam, and he dictated the Krishna book, which is different from this in that it doesn't have all the formal verses. It's called the summary study, the running translation with interspersed commentary. That came out in 70, and at the first, one of the first big Rath Yatras in San Francisco. Huge pictures, with the thousands of hippies in procession and everything. And, there's a whole story. You read it in the Lilamrita, how the books were, printed in Japan, and Brahmananda was flying back, and they didn't have it ready. He's out on the tarmac, and the guys drive up in the limousine with the first box of books, because they really wanted our account. We were a big account, So he sold one on the plane. He comes back, and he hands the box to Prabhupada. He says, one is missing. What happened to it? I sold it. Oh, wonderful. And then Prabhupada proceeds to sell all of them, the rest of the 20 in the box, So that was the Krishna book. It changed everything. Suddenly we had these stories, Putana, the birth and everything. Devotees knew who Krishna was. And it's the evolution of the movement. I thought I'd share that with you a little bit. All right. Next verse. The mood changes now. Now he's still in a mood of like awe and reverence, but he wants to apologize because he's been so intimate with Krishna, which Krishna actually likes, Text 41 to 42. Saketi matva prasavang meruktam. Hey Krishna, hey Yadava, hey Saketi. Ajanata mahimanam tavedam. Maya pramadat pranihena vapi. Yak chabahar sartam asatkritosi. Vihara shayasana bhojaneshu. Ekotavapyachyuta tatsamaksham. Tatshamaye tvamaham aprameyam. Thinking of you as my friend, I have rashly addressed you, O Krishna, O Yadava, O my friend, not knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times, jesting as we relaxed, lay on the same bed, or sat or ate together, sometimes alone, sometimes in front of many friends. O infallible one, please excuse me for all these offenses. For all those offenses. Purport. Although Krishna manifested before Arjuna in his universal form, Arjuna remembers his friendly relationship with Krishna and is therefore asking pardon and requesting Krishna to excuse him for many informal gestures which arise out of friendship. He, Arjuna, is admitting that formerly he did not know that Krishna could assume such a universal form, although Krishna explained it as his intimate friend. Arjuna did not know how many times he may have dishonored Krishna by addressing him, "O my friend, O Krishna, O Yadava," etc., without acknowledging his opulence. But Krishna is so kind and merciful that in spite of such opulence, he played with Arjuna as a friend. Such is the transcendental loving reciprocation between the devotee and the Lord. The relationship between the living entity and Krishna is fixed eternally. It cannot be forgotten, as we have seen from the behavior of Arjuna. Although Arjuna has seen the opulence in the universal form, he cannot forget his friendly relationship with Krishna. So this is the kind of the tension between Arjuna's internal, rasa, mellow with Krishna, and what he's now witnessing. It was such a shock. He asked to see it, but then, this is my friend. Oh my God. He's, Carlos Milo, So it's kind of just like Mother Yashoda. You know, she looked into the mouth of Krishna. Uh-oh. I thought he was my son. I thought he was Nanda's son. Now I know better, you know. But before she could really get into it, Krishna draws the curtain because he doesn't want to lose that maternal. Krishna's, you know, he says, or it said in the Brahma's prayers, the Krishna in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto, after Brahma is bewildered, you know, and then he realizes, oh, this little boy with the fruit in his hand is really my Lord, you know, and he offers these prayers. So then at the end of his prayers, he says, I forget the Sanskrit now, Ahoti Danya Vatigo Ramanya. Oh, that's the first line. How glorious are these residents of Vrindavan, who, you know, suckled you. In other words, you gave the opportunity for all the cows and all the mothers to suckle you. You know, you appeared as their sons. You were playing perfectly as their sons, as the calves, you know. And that offering of breast milk and udder milk, let's call it that, pleased you more than all the offerings of in awe and reverence offered in the Vedas since time immemorial. In other words, this is what Krishna really wants. When we say that Krishna has 6 opulences, one of them is renunciation. It really means dispassion. It really means he doesn't need anything from us. He doesn't need anything material. He's not interested. But one thing he is very interested in is love and devotion. That's what he wants. That's what he doesn't have. Right? We're withholding that from him. It's to our own detriment. But he's interested in that. He wants that. And so he much prefers to lie in the bed with Arjuna and fool around, you know, and address and be in this informal relationship. That's much more pleasing than all of this awe and reverence. But in this context of the battlefield, it's appropriate, and Arjuna has to take on it. But Arjuna is reacting, you know, in this way, as if the friend part of his relationship is a big mistake, and he's sorry, you know. That's how discombobulated he really is. So and in the next verse, he'll you know ask for more pardon, you know. So it's very interesting, the play of different emotions that are going on here. Arjuna he becomes awestruck, he wonder. That's one of the 7 mellows, you know. And then fear, you know, he's really frightened. And you know, glorification, appreciation for the glories. There's all kinds of emotions going on, and ultimately Krishna will return to his most attractive form, two-handed form. You know, Arjuna. So there's a lot happening here in this chapter. All right, let's read one more. It's kind of a long purport, but we'll read it anyway. Pitasi lokasya chacharasya Tvamasya pujas chaguru gariyan Natvatsamosyam yadikakutonyo Lokatehepya pratima prabhava. Okay. You are the father of this complete cosmic manifestation, of the moving and the non-moving. You are its worshipable chief, the supreme spiritual master. No one is equal to you, nor can anyone be one with you. How then could there be anyone greater than you within the 3 worlds, O Lord of immeasurable power? Yeah, the next verse is one where he asks more forgiveness. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is worshipable as a father is worshipable for his son. He is the spiritual master because he originally gave the Vedic instructions to Brahma, and presently he is also instructing the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Therefore, he is the original spiritual master, and any bona fide spiritual master at the present moment must be a descendant in the line of disciplic succession stemming from Krishna. Without being a representative of Krishna, one cannot become a teacher or spiritual master of transcendental subject matter. The Lord is being paid obeisances in all respects. He is of immeasurable greatness. No one can be greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, because no one is equal to or higher than Krishna within any manifestation, spiritual or material. Everyone is below him. No one can excel him. This is stated in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.8. Natatsya karyam karanam cha vidyate, natat samasyabhidikascha drishyate. The Supreme Lord Krishna has senses and a body like the ordinary man, but for him there is no difference between his senses, his body, his mind, and himself. Foolish persons who do not perfectly know him say that Krishna is different from his soul, mind, heart, and everything else. Krishna is absolute. Therefore his activities and potencies are supreme. It is also stated that although he does not have senses like ours, he can perform all sensory activities. Therefore his senses are neither imperfect nor limited. No one can be greater than him, no one can be equal to him, and everyone is lower than him. The knowledge, strength, and activities of the Supreme Personality are all transcendental. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha chaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjana. Whoever knows Krishna's transcendental body, activities, and perfection, after quitting his body, returns to him and doesn't come back again to this miserable world. Therefore, one should know that Krishna's activities are different from others. The best policy is to... different from others. The best policy is to follow the principles of Krishna. That will make one perfect. It is also stated that there is no one who is master of Krishna. Everyone is a servant. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 5, 142 confirms, Ekale Ishvara Krishna ar sabha bhritya. Only Krishna is God and everyone else is his servant. Everyone is complying with his order. There is no one who can deny his order. Everyone is acting according to his direction, being under his superintendence. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, he is the cause of all causes. So, Janma karma me vivyam evam yo vedi tattvataha. One who knows my birth and activities, the divine transcendental nature of my birth and activities in truth, tattvataha, will not take birth again. After giving up the body, will come to me and not be born again. Prabhupada quoted this verse a lot. And that's one of the reasons he gave us, Krishna book and his books, to give us subject matter for understanding Krishna. What is that verse? Anugrahaya bhaktanam manasam dehimastataha bhajate tadashi krida yashrutra tatparo bhavet. Why does Krishna come? So we know from 4th chapter, as I mentioned, he comes in order to reestablish Dharma, protect the devotees, annihilate the miscreants. But there's another reason. It says, out of my mercy, Anugrahaya bhaktanam manasam dehimastataha. He comes in his original human-like form, manusam dehimastataha, and he engages or he enacts these pastimes, which are replicas of his pastimes in the spiritual world. Bhajate tadashi krida yashritro tatparo bhavet. And having heard them, these pastimes, one should surrender and become dedicated to him. So it's these lila, nama guna rupa lila. This is what defines any person: the name, form, qualities, and activities. And the activities, or in Krishna's case we call them pastimes, are completely voluntary. They embody these things. These names and the qualities are all shown in the pastimes. You find in the Nectar of Devotion, there is a listing of 64 qualities of Krishna, 4 different groups, 50 that human beings can have to a certain degree. Kindness, even shyness, that's one of his qualities in certain. And then there's 5 that we can't have, but that Shiva can have, like omniscience and things. Then there's 5 that even Shiva can't have, but that the Purusha avatars have. And then there's 4 that only Krishna has. Sarvabhuta Chamakara Lila Karola Bhadadi. He's an ocean full of most astounding pastimes, attractive pastimes. He's surrounded by devotees at the highest level of prema, namely the gopis. He plays the flute. You never see Vishnu with a flute. He plays that all-attractive flute, which attracts the mind of everyone in the universe. Asamanodva Rupa Shri. His form, his beauty, and his opulence are unequaled and unsurpassed. And they astound everyone in the universe who perceives them. So those qualities are manifest in his pastimes. And it's Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, he lists them, and then each one is given an example and how he's manifesting it. It's very rich. This is how we can become Krishna conscious. All right, it's become 8:10. Dhanavari, any last comment, question?
No, Prabhu, thank you so much. Quick question. When you say the 64 qualities, we have some, and then Lord Shiva has some. So and then Krishna has 5 more extra than
four
Lord
unique.
Shiva? 4 more
Yeah.
than Lord Shiva?
You write to me, and I'll tell you exactly where you find all that in the Nectar of Devotion.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so
All
much.
glories
Hare
to Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada. Hari Bol.
Thank you.